Hey everyone, my name is Tyler Lamparter and I'm a Principal Product Manager at Soligo. Today I'm going to walk you through reverse ETL. So first off, what is reverse ETL? Reverse ETL is the process of migrating data from a database or data warehouse that you've got. Maybe it's like NetSuite, Analytics Warehouse, or Snowflake, or SQL Server, and then migrating that back into a source application such as NetSuite or Salesforce or HubSpot. And typically people have a few use cases for this, but a couple of the main ones is they're aggregating data from their database and putting it back into their source system. So maybe you don't want raw detailed transaction data in your ERP, so you aggregate that first in a warehouse and then push those aggregated transactions up into your ERP. And then other use cases are around like pushing different calculations or customer metrics into those applications. So maybe you have customer health scores or various different metrics applying to customers or transactions. You push those back into those source applications so you can run workflows off of them, maybe perform different marketing tasks or different campaigns based off of those metrics that you're pushing back into those applications. Today I'm going to walk you through aggregating data and then putting it into a data warehouse and then pushing that aggregated data into NetSuite as journal entries. So first off, I've got two flows. My first flow, I'm grabbing CSV files from an FTP server. So we have a vendor that's dumping CSV files to us every day. And so this flow runs once a day to grab those CSV files and put them into NSAW. But you could go to any other database, data warehouse that we have connections for. So if I go into flow one here, I'm getting my source data is an FTP and I'm grabbing those CSV files. If I click in here, you can see I am going to a file type of CSV, comma, separated, row delimiter, right? You can change your parsing strategy to however you need. I'm picking up from a directory, Tyler Lamparter BP in this case. You can add some filtering conditions in case maybe you need a filter based off the name or various other aspects of the file metadata. And then lastly, in this case, I'm just leaving that file on the server after it's picked up, but typically you would have this unchecked. And then maybe you'd back up that file to a backup directory so you can review that file later in case you need to. All right, so then I'm going to preview the data. You can see on the right-hand side, this is from the sample file that I uploaded previously, but you can see my sample data coming in. It's got different transaction IDs, transaction dates, customers, pretty much anything that we would need to create journal entries in the future. All right, so discard those changes, and then I'll come over into the NSAW step. In this case, I'm going to an NSAW table called Demo Sales Detail. I'm just bulk inserting all these records in. And then I've got a mapping here created to map all of those fields into my NSAW table. So here I just have a one-to-one relationship because I created the table in NSAW with the sample file that I had, but you might have, of course, different mappings depending on how your table is actually structured. But I've just got, transaction ID to train date and all these others mapped to those. Cool. So once that runs, it inserts all those, all that sales detail into that NSAW table. And then after this flow runs, it runs the second flow. So it'll trigger the second flow to pull those records in aggregate and then push them to NetSuite. So if I go to flow 2, you can see my first step on this flow is actually pulling from NSAW. And I just have a simple SQL query, just selecting from this view that I created in NSAW. And then I'm joining onto a processed table to make sure I don't repull the same thing. And then you can see I'm just pulling everything from this query, and I can preview that data here. You can see I have no records here to preview since I've already processed the transactions, but if I did, right, I would see the records here. I could go down to the mock output where I've previously stored what this response would look like. So you can see I've got rows of data, different debits and credits needed, and then the accounts, transaction dates that I need to create, or that I need to use to create journal entries in NetSuite. So then I get to an actual NetSuite step. I'm choosing a journal entry to create. I want to make sure that I don't create duplicate journal entries. So I'm doing, how do I find existing records? And then if it finds an existing record, it just will ignore that. So I've got a couple different checkpoints in here to make sure I don't duplicate anything. And then I'm mapping in my fields to NetSuite. So I'm mapping in the subsidiary, currencies, debits, credits to create that journal entry. I response map back the ID that was created, so that journal entry ID. I map that back into my data. And then lastly, I log that successfully created journal entry. So again, as a part of my first query, I don't pull processed journal entries again. So a couple different checkpoints there just to make sure that doesn't happen. So again, in this case, I'm just going to destination table, process sales detail, and then mapping just that transaction ID that was created into that table, along with the transaction date and external ID. So that's pretty much it. This is reverse ETL use case for aggregating data prior to going into an ERP. If you'd like to see any other use cases built out and demoed, feel free to reach out. But thanks for your time today, and see you on the next one.